Hi friends, welcome to my channel where I talk about how to heal chronic fatigue and chronic illnesses and symptoms and chronic patterns in our lives by healing old trauma, particularly attachment trauma. Today I'm excited to come to you because I finally had a breakthrough with one of the energies I was dealing with fairly recently. The last two videos I've put out, you could probably tell I was in a fairly pained place and I was working through really entrenched patterns, and I finally have clarity on the feelings underneath. So what I have been in the midst of in the last couple of months, but really this has been like the overarching theme in the last year and a couple months in powerlessness, and helplessness. Powerlessness has been a huge energetic signature of my life. And it's not fun to admit. It's even less fun to admit that learned helplessness is the prominent energy in my life. I use the two slightly differently. And honestly, I might be resonating more with learned helplessness this last cycle that I was in. Maybe that's because I've done enough shame work that I'm I'm not consumed with toxic shame. I'm not triggered into toxic shame when I refer to learned helplessness. When I first learned about that, I entered my first like legitimate shame spiral, or the most severe that I had ever experienced. And thank God I had havening at my disposal in my toolbox, because that's really the thing that stopped the plummet. When I was learning about learned helplessness and reading about it, because it was like, that is me. That is my life, and I don't want to be that. I don't, so consciously I know that I'm powerful. Consciously I know that if I take action and I can change my life. Consciously I know all these things. And tell me if you relate to this. Comment down below if you relate to this, because I think so many of us, especially those with these illnesses, can relate to this feeling of helplessness and powerlessness. And for me, it evokes a lot of shame, or has in the past. Like I said, this has been a huge pattern for me. This is just such a huge energy, and it's shown up in so many areas of my life. And all the conscious effort in the world to shift that hasn't worked. And believe me, I have. It has been such a focus of mine. Again, I don't consciously think that I'm helpless. This is an energy that's in my body, and it was programmed in. It's in the unconscious. But as long as I'm too scared to really bring it to light, bring it to conscious light and pull it in and embrace it, it's going to hold power over me. And over the last year and a few months, it's been these deep unconscious cycles. Going into these cycles has helped me access grief and disappointment and anger and rage, because those are all in there. When you're talking about powerlessness or helplessness, it's not the fundamental energy. It's not the energy underneath. It's like the convolution of multiple energies in there. There's fear in there. There's fear, there's shame, there's anger, there's rage, there's disappointment, and there's sadness. But disappointment has been really the thing that has come up more recently. That is really the key. That is what I have discovered, that disappointment is at the base of this helplessness that I'm working with now, that's coming up. And when it gets triggered, it's like I talked about in the last video and in other videos, it pulls me into a very, very dark space that's foggy and cloudy and mucky and murky, and I can't seem to see anything straight. And as I've learned how to work with these energies through this time, I know the concepts and I remind myself of them. It's about holding the conscious self there with the unconscious self. It's like the adult self and the child self at the same time. To know that even as I'm being consumed by these energies physically and mentally, emotionally, that there's an inkling, there is a thought that I'm carrying, and reminding myself that this is a wound, you're in a wound, because that acknowledgement creates that little bit of separation that we need to come back out of it. But this has been so intense for me because my life situation my living situation, my life circumstances, it's like I have to deal with it. It's like, here it is. Here's your block. This is what is blocking you from what you want, what you're trying to do, when it has very much felt like trapped in a box and too scared to break out of the box. I'm describing all of this in case you are working with powerlessness or helplessness, learned helplessness, I should say. This is a really big energy, and oh my God, I feel so grateful that I have finally made a breakthrough. And part of that came, a big part of it came by a couple of memories that have come up spontaneously. I do not believe they're the original cause of my learned helplessness. I think learned helplessness is an energy that the seeds were created very early in my life, but of course I don't have distinct memories of that, as none of us do. But there were a couple of very formative memories that I never would have guessed that they were so profound in teaching me that I'm powerless in my life, that I have no power, that you don't have any power. And I won't share the specific memory because it doesn't really matter for you, but there are memories that reinforced the belief. And there were opportunities for that belief that I'm powerless to be rewired and rejected, but they weren't. They were just reinforced. And what I uncovered was that I had this unconscious belief: people can do whatever they want to you, and you just have to take it. Both times that I've described the memory that I had and then described this belief and stated this belief, so many tears came up. So many tears came up, and I feel it. I feel some more. I have more work to do, more tears to shed, and more love and safety and connection to create for myself. So the first time came up, I was surprised by it because I didn't understand at the time how profound that impacted my life, but not that was the root, but it was symbolic. You know, when we have memories, they don't always have to be the original. They just have to be symbolic enough for you to access the emotion, to process it. Because like I said, when we have attachment trauma, when we learned things before we were verbal, before we could create distinct memories in our minds, we were creating memories in our body, but not our minds. How do we access a memory to get to the emotion, right? And if it's an emotion that's hard to access, we kind of need a memory a lot of times. If you can access the emotion without a memory, then you don't need the memory. But if it's emotion that is unconscious, and this is really what we're talking about on this channel, when it's emotion that's unconscious that's causing you chronic illness, chronic symptoms, chronic patterns, chronic pains, chronic blocks, then a lot of times to access the emotion, because the emotion is the thing that's creating the block, because it's unprocessed emotion, and emotion has to be moved and processed. If it's stuck, it's going to cause problems. And so in order to access it, a lot of times we need the memory, a memory that will evoke the same emotion that's underneath. So these two memories that are very similar to each other did that for me. And so the first time it came up, I acknowledged it. Wow, there's pain here. I didn't realize there was pain here. And so I was welcoming the pain, but as I released the pain, I didn't realize it was way bigger. This energy was way bigger than I realized. It wasn't until the second time that it came up again very spontaneously. And then I started to see, as I spoke about it, I started to see this was really huge in my development of a belief that I'm powerless in my life, that people can treat you any way that they want, and I have to just take it, that I don't have any power to change that. I can't stand up for myself. I wasn't aware of that belief until recently, because again, consciously, I don't have that belief. And then once you recognize a belief like this, it feels so true. It feels so right. And it's like, and then you can start to see all the times that has somehow manifested in your life, in different relationships. And then it's like, oh my God. I mean, yesterday I was allowing these downloads to come and come and come as I started to realize the vastness of this belief. I already knew this conceptually, that I was taught that I was powerless, but I didn't have a really clear body sense as to what taught me that. And it wasn't until the second time of accessing this memory and releasing more emotion with it and really illuminating it more, pulling it apart more, that I started to really see how I was taught, how I was conditioned to believe that I was powerless in my life, that I can't evoke change, real change in my life. I've always known that that's not true in my head, but that unconscious always wins, always wins. I think it's Joe Dispenza. He says, our unconscious is running 95% of the time. We are being run by our unconscious. And only 5% of the time are we being run by our conscious. And so it's about reprogramming our unconscious, because our unconscious will always win. Even if you can live a more and more conscious life and start to recognize, like, you can only get to I think he says 8 or 9% conscious. It's still 91% unconscious. So we have to reprogram the unconscious. So I'm sharing with you my experience. I'm hoping it's helpful to you, that when we can bring clarity to it, when we can illuminate and start to access the actual emotion. And what was the emotion? It was sadness. It was grief. It was disappointment. Disappointment. And some anger. Why did you this never should have happened. So it's our primary caregivers, our parents usually. It's about directing that energy, because it has been directed on me. I'm powerless. I'm powerless. I'm helpless. Now it's about turning it around and being like, there was a mistake here. There was an error. And I'm not blaming. I'm not shaming. It's not about getting blamey and shamey. It's about reorienting the energy. Oh, you guys messed up there. Okay, I see that. Then there are tears. There's a release that comes with that. That is so key. So it's the emotion coming, it's the shifting of energy towards the thing that it belongs to, not us. We all have a tendency to point it in ourselves. That was functionally necessary when we were kids, because we didn't have the resources to deal with those things ourselves. We needed to be taught that. So in order to feel safer in our environment, we pointed things in on ourselves. It's my fault. I'm the problem. This is why I feel this way, because of me. I'm powerless. I am helpless. I can't do anything. It's natural. We all do it. So we have to figure out how to shift that energy outward again. Again, not blaming and shaming, but just putting the responsibility. Oh, you guys messed up. You guys made an error. Everybody makes errors. Nobody is a perfect parent. That mistake was so instrumental for me in my belief system, because I had already had seeds, because of attachment wounding. I had already had seeds of feeling powerless in a relational dynamic with one of my parents. Because I had felt helpless or powerless in getting what I needed early on in attachment needs, I already had a belief that I was helpless or powerless. But to access the emotion, it took these memories. I was 13, 14. And so then I'm realizing that was an opportunity to reprogram this belief that I had, that I have power in the world. And that didn't happen. In fact, it just reinforced that belief that I already had. But what's really amazing is I'm feeling all of these shifts just in the last couple days, after releasing that emotion, after expanding on that and realizing how important that was, and then being able to recognize and see the ways that I was conditioned. The combination of all the conscious light that I'm shining on it, and then the emotion coming with it, has shifted all these things. All of a sudden, I'm thinking differently than I've ever thought about money, about my relationships, my security, all my relationships, my romantic relationship, my relationship with my child. It's like a cascade is happening. It almost feels like an unraveling is happening. And this is what I'm talking about, that when you reach the actual emotion and process it, and bring all this conscious light to what it really is, the truth of, hi Mitzi, the truth of what's really in your body, the truth of what your real experience has been in your life, internal experience. When you can do that, that is the rock, that's the anchor that's holding your ability to shift back. This has been my repeated experience again and again and again. It's this rock holding on to the balloons of the beliefs and the thoughts. And so as long as that rock is there, it's like I can't shift my beliefs. I know I believe I'm helpless. I believe I'm powerless somewhere in my body. And so I'm just like, but I can't shift it. I can't do it. And it's a self-propelling issue because I'm powerless to solve my powerlessness wound. I can't. Did you hear that? I said I can't. I can't change it. I can't shift it. That's powerlessness to shift powerlessness in my body. Do you see what I'm saying? That's why one reason that I have found it such a difficult and intractable energy. And I've been working with it, as I said, for like a year and going deep into these with conscious attention and havening and other somatic work, stretching and movement and speaking. I think the throat is so pivotal. The throat is so pivotal for starting to move this energy because it brings more to light. We have to bring consciousness. The light has to shine on these unconscious darknesses. And that's what they are. As long as they're in the unconscious, they're in the dark. And so it's about shining light on them. And once we can shine enough light on there, then the emotion comes up. So once we release the rock, then the beliefs that are balloons that were attached to a rock are easily shifted. And that's why it feels like it's like an unraveling. Now I feel like I can shift. I can think differently, whereas before I couldn't. I was so trapped in that way of thinking. It's incredible that we all have this light, this knowledge, this beauty, this divinity at our core. And when it's concealed by painful, unprocessed pain, there's darkness on top of it. And it's about releasing that darkness, bringing light to the darkness and moving that darkness through our body. That's when the light of ourselves and the knowledge of what we really are is illuminated. Our authenticity can be seen and felt, the light of what and who we are. And that's why our throat is so important in the healing process, to be able to speak and put to words. Words have energy, as you've heard many mindset people say. Thoughts have energy, words have energy. And so we can use that energy to bring up our true, authentic experience, what our life experience, what it has felt like to be in this life, in this place, and put words to what our inner child who's stuck at a certain age in a certain time because there's unprocessed pain there that makes us stuck. We're stuck. And so to get it unstuck, I just find words to be just so helpful. We've got to do havening. We've got to do nervous system work, holding, hugging, stroking, and conscious breathing, being aware of how we're breathing so that we can bring as much peace and safety and connection to our body as possible while we speak. We're starting to bring to light. Our throat is the center point between our mind and our body. It's the thing that brings the body's experience up to the mind so that we can work with it, so that our mind can help us instead of harming our progress. It's bringing that up, bringing from the depths through the throat. So I've been doing a lot of somatic things with my throat to help too. Stretching, using a yoga block to really get into a lot of tightness that's in there. I've had a chronic shoulder pain, which it's been symbolic of what I'm working with. Very symbolic of what I'm working with this powerless energy. So I want to go back and give validation to the fact that this powerlessness and helplessness are such challenging energies to work with, but they can be moved. I'm living testament because they are so entrenched in me. They have been, I should say, so entrenched with me. And I don't know what's going to come in the days and weeks to come. Who knows, I might plummet into another cycle. I have no illusion that I'm done with this, but it's amazing to feel the unraveling of the ways that I've thought from my beliefs. The thoughts and the behaviors that have come from my beliefs are unraveling, and I'm just it's sort of awe-inspiring to me to witness it happening. If you're working with helplessness or powerlessness or both, I really wanted to share this with you to give you maybe hope, maybe inspiration and encouragement that they're really tough, but they can be moved. I have been moving them all year, but it hasn't been till now that's felt like an actual breakthrough. Like I've been moving energy and reaching tears, and it's gotten me out of the freeze response time and time again, but I keep cycling back into it. And that's how it happens. It's like you release some and but then you cycle back into it. You're out for a while and then you cycle back in. Something triggers and then it just repeats. This has been the first time that I feel like something major has shifted, something major, and the unraveling is happening. I want this also to be inspiring of the idea that when we get to the emotion and bring conscious light to these energies that have not been fully seen and held and loved and connected with and validated, when they are those things, when they are validated and seen and felt, the rock is removed and we shift behaviors, energies, thoughts, patterns without even trying. I mean, or I should say very easily, whereas before, as long as the rock is there, it's so entrenched. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys are doing well in the intense energy of the planet that we're living in. We're in this together. I am here with you. And if you ever want my support, direct support, please reach out to me on my website. It's laurenvorhees.com. You can schedule a 30-minute free session at first, and then we can go from there for paid sessions. I would love to give you hope, give you validation, give you insights, give you prompting, give you lessons that I've learned, teachings that I've learned, lead you towards the energies that need to be seen, lead you towards the emotions that need to be cried out or expressed. If that sounds like something that you would like, please reach out to me. I hope you guys are having a beautiful day and week, and I look forward to talking to you on the next one. Okay, bye.